have any questions on how we got that? Okay. So next part is finding the slope-intercept form of that table. There's two different ways we could have found the slope. Who can raise their hand and tell me what help they use for how they found the slope?
How do you find the slope of this table?
Perfect. Change over y over the change over x. We also see when you look at your formula sheet, it says average rate of change, and it tells you it says change in y divided by the change in x. Did anyone do it differently than that? No? You also could have written it as points, so I could have used 2, 4 and 4, 8 and did the same thing that I did here. I'm going to do it that way because I'd rather play it safe. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2, and then I'm going to plug it into the slope formula. So y2, which is 8, minus y1, which is 4, over x2, which is 4, minus 2. When you do that, I end up getting, what's 8 minus 4?
Oh, no, 8, 4.
4 over 2, which ends up being 2. I also could have counted change in y over change in x. You don't need to do both. But I could go, okay, from here to here to here, what's happening over and over again? It's adding 4, which is what I got right here, the change in y, over the change in x. So what's happening from 2 to 4 to 6, adding 2, which is what I got right here. So it's the same thing, it's just a different way of writing it. And so 4 divided by 2 is 2. So you don't need to do it both ways. If you'd rather just write those points and you're comfortable with that, do that way. Then I write my equation, y equals mx plus b. But instead of m, I'm going to put 2 as my slope. Now, I can see on my table there is no oh, y, can I never remember this? So you can either work backwards, and I could go, okay, if I work backwards, what plus 2 equals 2? What number, or subtract it? What's 2 minus 2? 0. Up there, here's my y-intercept, and this is going by 4. So what's 4 minus 4? 0. So I can see that my y-intercept is 0. Or if you don't want to work backwards like that, I can choose a point and plug it in. So I can choose any point. I'll choose this one, and I'll go, okay, my y is 4, and my x is 2. So either way you do it, you should have gotten the same answer. So what is 2 times 2? What is 2 times 2? 4. Then how do I get b by itself? Subtract 4. And 4 minus 4 is 0. I got the exact same answer. Doesn't matter if you work backwards on the table or if you solve it like this. So my answer would just be y equals 2x. You can do plus 0, but you don't have. When it's 0, you don't really have to. Who can raise their hand for a brave buck and tell me what's the vocabulary word we use for 0, 0? Raise your hand. Origin. I remember origin because it starts with the O. So 0, 0, which is what that point is right there. 0, 0 is your origin. That is a vocab word you are going to need to know for the test. Origin, I just remember they start with an O, and the words that represent it also starts with an O. Cool. So circle how you feel on the side. Yes means I got it before you even went over it, Miss K. Maybe means like I get it now, but I may just need some extra help. And no means I totally don't get it, and I wasn't really able to follow along. So make sure you're circling yes, maybe, or no. And we're moving on. Cool. So our lesson for today is domain and range. So make sure your phones are completely away. Make sure your headphones are out, even if they're not playing. Remember, during independent work, I'll let you listen to them. But while we're going over notes, we should be listening in. You also need 2 color highlighters. Does anyone not have that? 2 color highlighters. Anybody else? here. Anybody else need it? Colors? Okay. So we're gonna start today's lesson. Today's lesson is pretty easy, but I do need to make sure your devices are completely away. So after and so today we're going to be dealing with domain and range. And what I have you write on the paper is you're using your colors and you're going to choose one for X, one for Y. So I'll use blue for X and I'm going to use purple for Y. Right at the bottom of your piece. So it's your, we're on the notes for today, it's that half sheet of paper. On the top, I'm going to write this. And so how I always teach this is I like remember letters, right? Like D comes before R in the alphabet and X comes before Y, right? And so I just remember Dr. XY. He's our little superhero for this lesson and this unit. So Dr. XY is our little superhero, and we just remember Dr. XY because the domain are your X coordinates. The range are your Y coordinates. So every time you get your paper for the entire day, make sure to put Dr. XY on it. And you remember that because the domain is your X coordinate, the range is your Y coordinate. So you're sticking with these colors for today. So the first thing, we're just identifying it from coordinates. So I want you to go through and figure out, okay, which coordinates would be my X coordinates? The first or the second one, number in each one. Which one are your X coordinates? Are they the first number or the second number? When we look at this first number, right? So I'm going to underline or highlight in your case. I'm going to highlight all the first numbers in each point. So you're going to highlight all the first numbers and whatever you chose for that D in your first point. And you can actually highlight it. And so my domain are just all my X coordinates. When we write domain, we usually start with the smallest number. So out of these numbers, which number is the smallest? -4, right? So I write -4. What's the next one up? 5. And what's the next one? 6. See how 6 is twice? You only need to write it once. So it looks something like that. So your domain are -4, 5, and 6. If you write it twice, I'm not going to take points off. But in multiple choice questions, they're not going to have that number written twice. Your range you're going to use in your other color, which are your Y coordinates. So our ranges are these ones. So 2, -1, 3, and 1. So highlight those in the other color you chose. And when you write your range also, you always start with the smallest number. So out of those numbers, which one's the smallest? -1, right? And then the next smallest, 1. What comes next? 2. And what's last? 3. So I just took all my Y coordinates and you're just putting them in order from smallest to largest. Cool. So that's identifying them from points. From a table, it will look something like this. And so I know my X coordinates, Dr. XY, are my domain. So I know that all these are going to be my domain. So highlight that whole first row because it has X on it. I know those are going to be my domain. And so they're ready in order. So I'm just going to put them down here. So it's -2, 6, 8, and 20. So they're just all your X coordinates. Your Y coordinates, see how it has f of x right here? F of x is just another way of saying y. So if it says f of x, we know that's going to be a range because it's just another way of saying y. So when we're putting these in order, what comes first? -5, and I only have to write it once. What's next?
One.
1, and the last one. You. Cool. This one is called mapping, and so automatically what we're going to do is we're going to write them as points. And so how we write them as points is we just see these are our x coordinates and these are our y. And so we're just going to be writing them so it looks like this. I'm not going to write it right under here. So I see the 2 is my x. And what is it? What error or what is the 2 going with?
4.
See how 2 is going with 4? So this is actually just 2 comma 4. The next one, what's 4 going with? 2. See, 4 is going with 2. Oh no, I'm just writing them as points first. So you can write that somewhere on the sheet. You can write it right up underneath. And then what's our 8 going with?
Oh,
11. Perfect. And who's our 9 going with?
1.
So we're going to write those as points, especially for next lesson when we're differentiating between what's a function and what's not a function. We always want to write them as points. So now it's the exact same thing we did for the first one. So remember, Dr. XY domain are your x coordinates. So when I'm going in order, what's my smallest x coordinate? 2. Then what comes next? 4. Then what? And last? No. Cool. Arrange Dr. XY goes with y coordinates. And so we have to go in order. What's our smallest range here? 1. Then what? 2. What's next? 4. And what's the last one? Beautiful. All right, last one, we're looking at points, and a lot of us get confused when we look at points. And so domain are your x's, right? That means we're going side to side. And so I want you to take that color, and all you're doing is scanning the graph side to side. So like right here, I'm scanning side to side. Oh, I see 1 falls on this one. You guys see that? So you're going to draw whatever you're using for your domain color. You're going to draw a line up, or you're going to highlight up until that point. So I could see, okay, the smallest x coordinate here is 1. What's the next smallest one? Is there 1 on 2? Right here? Yep, so 2. Is there 1 on 3? Yeah, there is. Look down here and see. Gotta look down there. Yep, 3. Is there 1 on 4? Yep, right there. 4. Is there 1 on 5? Yep. Is there 1 on 6? Yeah. So especially for tomorrow's lesson, when we scan from left to right, that's our domain. So we're just literally scanning and seeing, okay, is there any little coordinates that fall on each of these numbers? My range, I'm taking mine and going from bottom up. So let's see what the lowest one is. What y coordinate is that one right there? Can I drag this right here?
3.
That was the x coordinate. What's the y coordinate?
-1.
-1, right? The next highest one up was right here. What's that x coordinate? 0. Just 0. We're just looking at the y's. What about this one? So see how I'm dragging it to the y-axis? What y coordinate is that? 1. What y coordinate is this one? 2. What y coordinate is this one at? 3. And what y coordinate is all the way up here? 6. So do you guys see when I'm doing domain, I'm scanning from left to right, just seeing if there's any dots. If there is one on an x coordinate, you're just writing the x coordinate. So y's are scanning bottom up. Does this make sense? Cool. Like, so we're just starting with this. So your practice, if you go to your packet, it looks something like this, where it says function or relation. Don't worry about that. We're doing that next class. So wherever you see function or relation, that's our lesson for next class, so don't even worry about it. And so for this one, you can skip this one because I don't like it. Skip this one altogether. So when I'm looking for the domain, remember you're scanning it left to right. And so when I scan it left to right, I go, okay, I'm starting, what was my domain color? So I'm gonna use blue, so I'm just scanning it left to right. Oh, I see one right here. See that guy? What X coordinate is that on? That's the Y coordinate. You're just looking at these numbers down here. So what coordinate is that on? 1, right? Is there anything on 2? Nope. 3? Yep, there's a guy right there. So 3. Anyone on 4? Yep, right there. 5? Nope. 6? Yep, right there. So you guys get how we're just scanning it left to right, just seeing if there's one that falls on one of those X coordinates. Then we're looking bottom up. So we're like, okay, let's start from the bottom one, this one. And I'm just driving it that way. What's that Y coordinate? What's it? Yeah, -2. And then I keep going up. Here's my next one. What's that Y coordinate? Oh, is that on there? So I go this way, -2. What's this one on? 2. And what are these ones on? +5. And I only have to write it once. Does that make sense? So that's all you're doing. You're just practicing identifying domain and range with graphs, with the mapping, with a table. And this one's saying, okay, here are my points. I want you to write them down on this graph. This one's giving you the points. They want you to write the domain and range. So you're using them interchangeably. Does it make sense what these 4 things are on the next page? Does everyone get what you're doing for this one? So this one's like giving you the table. They want you to write it as a map. This one's giving you the points. They want you to write it as actual coordinates and tell me what the domain and range is. So you're going to start on the front page and you're going to stamp. I have the answer key here somewhere. So you're going to be stamping your work just to make sure you got it. And then the last 2 problems on your ticket out the door are your 2 questions on your ticket out the door are these 2. And you don't need to do the function or relation thing yet because you're doing that next class. So this one's just saying identify what's the domain, what's the range. In this graph, what's the domain, what's the range. And that's your ticket out the door for this period. Does anyone